Purport by Srila Prabhupada. It appears from this verse that while passing from this planet to the planet of Yamaraj, the culprit arrested by Yamaraj's constables meets many dogs which bark and bite, just to remind him of his criminal activities of sense gratification. It is said in Bhagavad Gita that one becomes almost blind and is bereft of all sense when he is infuriated by the desire for sense gratification. He forgets everything. Kamaistai hritagyanah. One is bereft of all intelligence when he is too attracted by sense gratification, and he forgets that he has to suffer the consequences also. Here the chance for recounting his activities of sense gratification is given by the dogs engaged by Yamaraj. While we live in the gross body, such activities of sense gratification are encouraged even by modern government regulations. In every state all over the world, such activities are encouraged by the government in the form of birth control. Women are supplied pills and they are allowed to go to a clinical laboratory to get assistance for abortions. This is going on as a result of sense gratification. Actually, sex life is meant for begetting a good child. But because people have no control over the senses, and there is no institution to train them to control the senses, the poor fellows fall victim to the criminal offenses of sense gratification, and they are punished after death, as described in these pages of Srimad Bhagavatam. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport. So we are reading in this part of the Srimad Bhagavatam, Kapila Muni describing to his mother the journey of the conditioned soul in this material world and beyond. In today's verse, Lord Kapila is describing how the living entity, after he leaves his body, what happens to him. In the previous verse, we saw the constables of Yamaraj pull out the soul along with the Yatana Deha, a body which is suitable for taking punishment, which is the subtle body of mind, intelligence, consciousness. So it's extricated from this gross body. And here in this verse, it is described how the constables of Yamaraj treat the conditioned soul. Tayor nirbhinna hridaya tarjanair jatave patuhu. Tarjanaihi, by the threatening words. They are not very friendly people. And the conditioned soul who has engaged in sense gratification all his life also does not deserve such a friendly treatment. Tarjanai jatave patuhu, and because they are threatening and speaking harsh words, he is vepatuhu, he is trembling. And nirbhinna hridayaha, his heart is overwhelmed. Nirbhinna, it's torn apart, pierced, broken. Nirbhinna hridayas tarjanair jatave patuhu. Pati, and there seems to be a long walk. Prabhupada also says, it appears from this verse, while passing from this planet to the planet of Yamaraj, The culprit is arrested by Yamaraj's constables, and it's a long walk. Pathi Shvabhir Bhakshamana. On the path, Pathi Shvabhi. Shva means a dog. Shvabhir Bhakshamana. And these hungry dogs come after him, after the condition so. Bhakshamana. Bite him, they want to eat him up. Artho, he is so distressed. At that time, Agham Swam Anusmaran. Anusmaram, Agham, his sinful activities. Swam, his own sinful activities. Agham Swam Anusmaran. He recalls. He's made to recall his sinful activities. While carried by the constables of Yamaraja, Tayoha, two of them, he is overwhelmed and trembles in their hands. He is overwhelmed, nirbhinna hridayas, and trembles in their hands. Vepatuhu. While passing on the road, Pathi, he is bitten by dogs, Shvabhir Bhakshamana. And he can remember, Anusmaran, the sinful activities of his life. Swam Agham Anusmaran. He is thus terribly distressed. Artaha. So, Bhagavatam is informing us, Kapila Deva is informing us of things which we cannot know by our senses, by our mind, by our intelligence, about what happens to us after we leave this body. Because we see people around us, not only people, there are animals, insects, birds, and we see around us quite often death. Family members, neighbors, newspapers we read about people whom we don't know dying. But we only have information about how they died, and usually newspapers report the deceased is bereaved by his family members, one wife, 3 children, and so on, something like that. But what happens to him remains mysterious. No one knows. We can know that from Vedic statements. Like here, Kapila Deva is saying, he is carried nirbhinna hridayas tharjanair chata vepatuhu pathishvabhir bhakshamana artho agham swam anusmaran. Many times people ask the question, why is it that we don't remember our previous lives? When we tell that we are spirit soul, we have taken many births. In your previous birth, we could have been something. And in the future also, we'll take birth and then it will be something else. Quite often, the question that comes up is, if that's so, why don't we remember the previous birth? And very nicely, Srila Prabhupada used to answer these kind of questions. He would ask them, 1 week back, what did you have for breakfast? And it's hard to remember 1 week back, where was I? What did I have for breakfast? What did I eat? So, our memory fails. So, we cannot remember. That is how this body and the mind and the intelligence system is designed. So we have memory to some extent, and by and large things we dispense. We take it out of our memory and it's forgotten. That is because this body has a certain purpose. The body that we have and the life we are going through and the world that we are in, all of this has a certain special significance. And it is designed that we forget these things. Actually, forgetting previous lives, when people ask, why don't I remember my previous life? They are not really understanding the significance and the gravity of that question. I remember, I think I've told this story sometimes in the past. Somewhere in the 80s, it had come in the newspaper, and I used to have that cutting. Maybe I still have it in the newspaper cutting, an article, a story, about a woman somewhere in Maharashtra, a middle class woman and middle-aged woman, was working as a lawyer, and she had children, husband, and so on. And suddenly, at some point in her life, she started speaking incoherently, some gibberish, and then she would speak. Gradually they begin to hear that she was speaking some language which she had never learnt in this life. And then they took her. She couldn't sometimes do normal work. She couldn't cook at home. She couldn't take care of the family. She couldn't do her job. And then she was taken to a doctor. She started undergoing treatment. And then at some point she underwent some hypnotic treatment, psychiatric treatment. And then she started revealing something about appears like previous life. And then after that they tried to cure, and then always her life there would be in her day or once in a few days, few times in a week, or sometimes maybe few times in a day, there would be periods where she would switch off from this life and switch on her previous life and act like a previous life personality. And family members are all wondering, what's this? She's speaking some other language, she's identifying with something else. And sometimes she comes back. And it so happened that she could not continue her profession. She could not lead a normal life. She was always under treatment, and so on. You see, actually, when we say, why don't I remember my previous life? We think it is just a matter of memory recollection. It's a lot more than mere memory recollection. It's a recollection of a previous personality. It's a recollection of a previous circumstance. It's not just recollection, it is trying to live the previous life, because it was a complete personality with a certain situation, certain reality, certain relationships, certain circumstances. All of that coming into this life circumstance, it's going to clash. Just one life remembrance. Imagine we have had thousands and thousands of lives. And if we were to remember all of those thousands of lives, it would simply be an information overload on this system and we'll go crazy. So the Lord mercifully switches off all those memories, keeps the essential things. Okay, you have some desire. At that also Krishna will remind at the right time. Gives us a new body. And now start. This is exactly what is happening. So it's this body and mind and intelligence system cannot handle all those kind of things. Memories and recollections of previous lives. We will simply go crazy. Imagine in the previous life, I had borrowed lakhs of rupees, crores of rupees, and my business was failing. And then I didn't know what to do. And then I committed suicide. And then now I in this life, I start recalling, I got to pay that much money. And all the anxieties of that. What will happen if those anxieties come back? This life's anxieties itself are too much to handle. What to speak of anxieties of a previous life and hundreds and thousands of previous lives. We simply cannot handle all that. We are not meant for handling all those things. Now, there is an opportunity when we are given remembrance of our previous activities. That is when we are pati, shvabhir bhakshyamana, artho agham swam anusmaran. Here, there is. Now you want to remember? Yes. Now you recollect what you did. And there are dogs which will help you also recollect some of the sense gratification, criminal activities that you indulged in. So this is the arrangement. There's another reason why the Lord does not want us to remember just by flash of memory. Maybe that example I gave of that woman lawyer, it was some quirk, freak case. It's not a normal occurrence. Sometimes such freak cases happen. Again, that's also because of her karma. She had to go through that kind of a suffering of recollection of something and then not have a normal life. So these are all occasional occurrences here and there. There is yet another reason why the Lord wants us to know about our previous lives, know about our real situation. The Lord wants us to know about it from the statements of Vedic literature. Because it is not that the Lord wants us to know about our previous life. It was not just an additional piece of information about ourselves that the Lord wants to give us through the Vedic scriptures, but He has a big plan why He wants to give that information. And there is a reformation plan. He wants to give us an idea why we are here, why we are suffering, what is our true state of existence, whom are we, why all this exists. In fact, scientists ask this question because scientists are studying laws of nature, and they are studying how the laws of nature led to the creation of this world. And according to them, the world went through chemical evolution, and then the chemical evolution led to life form evolutions, and then the emergence of human beings, and so on. And they are studying how the different laws which actually helped chemical evolution and how all these things have come about, what the forces are, what the energies are. Sometimes scientists this is one important question the scientists ask. Why does all this exist at all instead of nothing existing? All this exists. There are laws, there are forces, there are energies, there is evolution. All of this happening, and we scientists sitting and studying all these things. Why is this going on? Why doesn't nothing exist so that none of us exist? There is nothing to study. Why something exists at all? Actually, these are very deep questions in science. Actually, these very same deep questions engaged the minds of the great sages of our country. These are considered to be 21st century science questions. But actually, thousands of years ago, this is the subject that was being discussed in the Vedic literatures, in the Vedanta philosophy. What is the source of all this? Why does things exist the way it is? What is the purpose behind all these things? And science has a limited way of looking at things. Only the manifest universe, using senses and mind and intelligence, which is a product of the manifest creation, manifest matter, and trying to understand what is all this. Is there something beyond this? What caused it? What is the purpose? This is really outside the domain of science. So, when something is outside the domain of science, science is the best that scientists have figured out, people have figured out, humanity has figured out to understand this world. Using senses and creating a theory, hypothesis, creating an experiment, proving it and improving on that, and so on. But it is all connected with this physical universe. And not even the physical universe, a very, 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 very small part of the physical universe. So it's highly limited. We cannot know about this world, about the generation after generation, people will come and go, speculating. Maybe this is the idea, maybe that is the idea, this is the purpose of life, this is how world has come about. Come up with varieties of ideas. But these are just speculative ideas. Someone came up with some idea, he thought of this, okay, it could be like that, it could be like that. These are just speculative ideas. There's no concreteness, may not be related to the truth at all. Just like we may sit here, we may hear some sound up in the ceiling, and we can start speculating, hey, what is that? No, somebody is ramming something into the floor. It could be someone else. Someone will come up with some other. No, there are children practicing some dance. Different kinds of theories can come about. The only way to know is what's happening up in that floor. If somebody from that floor comes down and tells us, no, this is what is going on, they're doing something else, and then we know, oh my God, that's the thing. Otherwise, we could be having various speculative theories. This is the way someone from the spiritual world comes to this world and reveals to us, tells us what this world is, what the other world is, what is the purpose of this creation. We will never figure out. Gnane prayasa udapasya namanta eva. That is why Lord Brahma is mentioning this very significant statement. Gnane prayasa. Gnana prayasa means this hard work or endeavor of speculative theories, trying to figure out what could be the purpose, how this world has come about, what is the reason, what this is all about. Gnana prayasa udapasya. Completely putting aside, setting aside. Namanta eva, becoming humble. If we have to receive knowledge from the Vedic literatures, Gnane prayasa udapasya namanta eva. Jivanti Shrutigatam tanuvan manobhir. And to receive the knowledge from the Shruti, Vedic literatures. To receive this knowledge. So that is the process. So, coming back to this, Artho agham svam anusmaran. Kapila Deva is saying that how the living entity is given an opportunity to remember. In this circumstance, he is given an opportunity to agham anusmaran. Agham means sin. Agham. That word comes in the Bhagavad Gita also. What is that? Yagna shishta shano santo muchyante sarva khilbhishai bunjate tva agham papam. Bunjate tva agham papam e pachanti atma karanat. Agham means sin. So agham swam anusmaran, he is allowed to remember. You see, this sin, what is sin? What constitutes sin? Last time we remember, if you remember, we discussed the definition of a sura and asura. And Krishna's definition in the Bhagavad Gita is pravrittim cha nivrittim cha janana vidurasuraha. So, people who don't know na shaucham, na cha acharo, na satyam teshu vidyate. Krishna is describing who is an asura. Pravrittim cha nivrittim cha janana vidurasuraha. Pravrittim, what is permitted activity? Nivrittim, what is forbidden activity? Pravrittim cha nivrittim cha jana na vidur asuraha. Asuraha janaha na viduhu pravrittim nivrittim na viduhu. What is permitted, what is not permitted, they don't have any understanding. Na shaucha, they don't have cleanliness, purification, purity. Na cha acharaha, what is right behavior? What is the right way to conduct in this life? They don't understand. Na satyam, what is the truth behind this? They don't care for it. They are known as asura. In another place in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Karmano hyapi bodhavyam, bodhavyam cha vikarmanaha, akarmanascha bodhavyam, gahana karmano gatihi. Bodhavyam means you must know. You must know. Karmano hyapi bodhavyam. What is karmana? Karma, prescribed activities. What is permitted activities? You must know. Bodhavyam cha vikarmanaha. What is forbidden? Vikarma, very similar. Not activities which are not permitted. And Krishna has introduced a third concept, akarmano bodhavyam. Here it is actually referring to inaction in the sense an action which does not produce a reaction. One must know. And gahana karmano gatihi. This karmanaha gatihi, the flow of karma, the movements of karma is gahana, too complex. It's too intricate. It's like it's a maze. It's a labyrinth. You cannot figure out. But you must know. And if you don't know, you are asura. That's the definition. Janana vidura asuraha. So, in other words, Krishna is urging, as human beings, we must know what is permitted activity, what is not permitted activities, and what are activities which don't bring reaction. Akarmanaha. This we must know, bodhavyam. But in today's life, in modern education, there is no such teaching of what is permitted activities, what is forbidden activities. No such considerations exist. And to take knowledge from the Vedic literature is considered to be something very despicable and unintelligent. Actually, it is not so. The Vedic literatures, actually the Sura means actually an enlightened person, a sensitive person, a responsible person who knows how to act. Just like, say, for instance, somebody starts business. Moment you start doing business, you must know when I make profit, when I sell my goods, what are the taxes, what are the government's rules that are involved, and I must abide by that. Then you are called a responsible businessman. You cannot say, oh, I made profit, but then I didn't know I have to pay tax. When tax people come after us, if you say, I didn't know, you can't say, I didn't know. If you know how to do business, you must know what are the other responsibilities you have to the state. You are supposed to know. In the same way, when as human beings, when we come into this world, we are expected to know these things. We can't say, I didn't know all these things. Nobody taught me, nobody told me. We can't give that excuse. In another thing that Prabhupada writes, when we are talking about sinful activities, vikarma means activities which are not permitted. Actually, Prabhupada points out, when we have all experienced this in our lives, there are occasions when we hear an inner voice telling us, you shouldn't do this. This is not right. Right? Haven't we experienced that? That's known as the conscience. Right? We all have it. Don't you have a conscience? We say it's supposed to be an inner voice. What does Srila Prabhupada say about conscience? There are two interesting quotes. One is from the Bhagavatam purport, another is from a lecture. I'll read that out. Because if there are sinful activities that Yamadutas are making us remember at that time, when we were here in this world, why were we not reminded of that? Someone may ask that question. So Prabhupada is answering. Why does the Supreme Personality of Godhead permit sinful activities? The Supreme Lord does not want any living being to act sinfully, and He begs him through His good conscience to refrain from sin. Prabhupada's statement, the Supreme Lord does not want any living being to act sinfully, and He begs him through His good conscience to refrain from sin. That conscience which is actually telling us, no. It's actually, Prabhupada is saying, it is the begging of the Lord. Don't do that. Don't do that. That actually the conscience is a sense of morality that is built in us. That's, Prabhupada is saying, that the Lord giving an indication. He is begging. Continuing. The Supreme Lord does not want any living being to act sinfully, and He begs him through His good conscience to refrain from sin. But when someone insists upon acting sinfully, the Supreme Lord gives him the sanction to act at his own risk. Mattaha smritir jnanam apohanam cha. No one can do anything without the sanction of the Lord, but He is so kind that when the conditioned soul persists in doing something, the Lord permits the individual soul to act at his own risk. Actually, the Lord reminds us, tries to bring in that good sense in the form of conscience. But what happens is, our desires overpower. Kamais taistai hrutagyan. When kama is there, desire for sense gratification is there, it comes with a certain force. And at that time, we quieten the conscience and say, no, I want to do this. I want to enjoy in this way. Then the Lord steps back and says, all right, I sanction at your risk, and allows the living entity. This is another statement by Srila Prabhupada. This is in a class in Bhagavad Gita class in Bombay in 1974. That you have got experience. Suppose you are going to do something which is not very good. The conscience is beating. No, you should not do this. You should not do this. But because without the sanction of the Supreme, I cannot do anything. So if we persist to do something, then the sanction is given at your risk. That is going on. God does not give you sanction for doing anything criminal. But if you persist to do something criminal, then God gives sanction. All right, do it at your risk. That is going on. We see Srila Prabhupada's this expression very often, that's going on. Even in the purport, today's purport it is there. Prabhupada used to use that expression. So here Prabhupada is saying the conscience is beating. So these are all the ways that the Lord tries to tell us that this is not right, this is not the best thing for us. But the force of karma that I want to enjoy is actually very strong. That is why to cleanse the living entity's heart, to reform the living entity, it takes a serious process. To enlighten the living entity, to sensitize the living entity about all these things, it takes a process. And Srila Prabhupada is recounting here how when the world becomes blind and does not take knowledge from the Vedic literatures, they try to figure out. And Prabhupada is giving this example of abortion. It's a very strong impetus in this world, the sexual impetus. And people don't know what to do with it. At a certain age, it starts showing up, it starts manifesting in this body. And then world has figured out that some kind of a regulation is essential for this. But actually that regulation is at a very superficial level, because there is no full understanding of who we are, what the purpose of this world is. There is respect for an institution of marriage, because some loyalty, some trust should not be broken. A man and a woman have come together. Those kind of ideas exist. But then any control on the senses, no such understanding exists. Actually, a man and a woman coming together and having sex for procreation. Dharma viruddha bhuteshu kamosmi bharatarshrabha. Krishna is saying that kama, dharma aviruddha kama, lust, which is not against dharmic principles, is actually very sacred. It is divine. It is Krishna himself. Krishna is saying, Dharma viruddha bhuteshu kama asmi bharatarshrabha. So that it is meant for procreation, but after that one should control senses, because if we don't control senses, there is no possibility of any transcendental realization. If we have to understand the transcendental truth, control of senses is basic. It's the real basic requirement. So such understanding does not exist. And so they have found from science, birth control by pills and contraception and abortion. Go to the clinic and you can get the aborted and continue sense gratification. What happens because of all these things? No idea. So, and Prabhupada is lamenting the poor fellows, the poor living entities in this world, they have no control. And there is no institution to teach them control. There is no institution to tell them why they should control. That's how Prabhupada closes the purport of this. This is going on as a result of sense gratification. Women are supplied pills and they are allowed to go to a clinical laboratory to get assistance for abortions. This is going on as a result of sense gratification. Actually, sex life is meant for begetting a good child. But because people have no control over the senses and there is no institution to train them to control the senses, the poor fellows fall victim to the criminal offenses of sense gratification and they are punished after death as described in this verse. So, Prabhupada created an institution. Prabhupada wanted this institution to expand, to enlighten people, to sensitize people, to tell them about the purpose of life. This is the highest Vedic knowledge. And that Vedic knowledge, what is the purpose of life, that Prabhupada has created this institution, created the books, created this process, how we lead our life from morning till evening, what we do with our lives, what we do with our time, so that there is continuous and progressive reformation, purification, and enlightenment happening. So that was the intent of Srila Prabhupada. That is his mission. He said this is his mission. Actually, that is Krishna's mission. That is the mission of all the acharyas. And he encapsulated that mission in this institution. We'll stop here. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki.